Okay, I hope you guys can hear me. Okay. Well, as I was browsing the internet and also some of the database that I usually check online, uh, quite often, I came across this topic particularly, which was on Indian politics, focusing on South India, particularly, Tamil Nadu. And, it is very much out of my sort of a curiosity that I decided to talk about this topic. And it's not necessarily of any devices or, anything of that, any motivations or inclinations. There's nothing of that sort, okay? I just wanted to clear the air out here. But yes, I'm going to be, talking about Indian politics and focusing on Tamil Nadu, specifically. Okay, and of course, I will be speaking on the electoral and political processes. Okay, so let's delve into it. Okay, all right. I can see a lot of people who have joined here. Okay, nice to see you guys. Okay, please feel free to comment down below. I'm more than happy to, you know, share with you or give you my opinions as well. So go ahead and drop your questions, okay? All right, okay. So India, after its independence from the British rule in 1947, the country had experienced its first general election, which was conducted between October 1951 and February 1952, enshrined under the due process of the Constitution of India and ratified in the Constitution Assembly in 1950, Constituent Assembly in 1950. This is according to Ornit Shani in the article How India Became Democratic, which is published by the Penguin Random House in 2008. So obviously, India had faced and come across this new dawn, per se, which had eclipsed here in our very South Asia region. And the dreams and the independent of democratic India had eventually, taken its shape, per se. Right. And so why I wanted to talk about Tamil Nadu is, I've already explained to you why I wanted to talk to you about, which is purely out of my curiosity, okay? And I stumbled upon a couple of articles, and I thought it was very interesting to me. But let me delve into it. The southern state of India, which is Tamil Nadu, has always been on a progressive side of comparing to many parts of India. According to one of the authors that I will actually cite quite a lot here in this podcast, which is Surdasan Padmanabhan, okay, Padmanabhan, in the article, "To Take or Not to Take, Is the Freebie Culture of Tamil Nadu Election a Threat to Indian Democracy?" Okay, so that's the question, okay? And the author points out that, and I quote, "Even during the pre-independence period, it had a history of progressive social movements promoting women's suffrage, rights to the depressed classes, okay, abolition of untouchability, banning of caste-based discriminations, and so on and so forth," unquote. So what does this tell us? Uh, you know, so it was very progressive in that nature, okay? It still had an efficient system of providing, midday meals, okay? Schemes to the majority of the population, including children in school, and many other strong affirmative action programs for a marginalized section in the society. Actually, I just want to point this out here, okay? One of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast regarding Tamil Nadu is because I think they do have a very good social programs and schemes and for example, midday meals for children, right? I think those are very interesting, especially this happens during the political, gambit per se, when elections come, and people start to rack up on all that kind of schemes and practices which they have been doing it from before, pre-independence. I would also like to emphasize here that Tamil Nadu was the first state to vote for a regional party to power. Okay, guys. So we had Congress the whole time. Okay, for the I don't know I think for the past 24 years of unbroken power held by the Indian National Congress. Okay, so this is according to the article published by Pandaman Ban. Okay, and page 2020. Okay. So in recent times, during the AIADMK leadership, okay, they gave out laptops. So this was during, the Jayalalitha period, okay, and for the past 3 terms, they gave out laptops, grinders, mixers, table fans, bicycles, schemes like Amma canteens, which is awesome, right? Which gave clean, tasty, cheap, nutritious food to urban migrant workers, women, poor and people of all walks of life, even people who were like blue-collared and white-collared people. They walked to the Amma canteen and they feasted on the good food that it was implemented. So I think the Jayalalitha government also provided Amma water and Amma medicine, I think, yes, and was involved in a women's self-help groups. Okay. So, I would like to advocate for such charity works that has been done by Jayalalitha. Okay. Despite the fact that, this was, it was against the public exchequer. Okay. So it was coming out from public's money, which was piling up, and people bought into it. And I would like to, like I said, I would like to advocate for such charity works given the fact, okay. And so here's the reason why I will tell you. I'm going to give you my pointers on why I advocate for such practices. Is because I think it's helping people. It's helping the poor, the downtrodden, the women, the people in the feeble society, who have lack of resources, lack of education, and all that downside. This political party comes about and gives such things to the people. I think I really advocate for that. And one of the reasons is because I, for one, I'll just give an example from my state. We don't have that kind of things. Amma canteens and all that kind of stuff. Amma, or I don't know, it could be something else, but subsidiary medicine, subsidiary education, subsidiary things, schemes, and programs for women, children, the nourished and the underprivileged. I mean, come on, you cannot go wrong with that. Okay, so, but the problem here lays, all for us to see here, is that handing out freebies or shelling out people's money in exchange for votes prior to the assembly election during 2006, 11, and 2016 probes for some kind of a answer or some kind of a justification for us, as Indians, or us as, people who are studying this movement or analyzing it. So it is for us to justify. And personally, I think it was a good thing when it came to such things such as giving charity to people. But that is my opinion. Okay. Interestingly, the term Tirumangalam Formula refers to the cash for votes scheme devised by M.K. Alagiri, the elder son of M. Karunanidhi, from former chief minister of Tamil Nadu and the president of DMK. All right. So, ironically, the precursor of this Tirumangalam Formula could be traced to the by-election at Santanakulam constituency, okay, in Tuticorin district, held in February 2003. In Santanakulam, the All India Anna Dravidia Munnetra Kazhagam, so AIADMK, distributed cash, utensils, saris, and other freebies to their voters. So here again, we have this issue of freebies again. And the ECI, the Election Commission of India, confiscated more than 100 crores, okay, which is about 1 billion rupees in cash and other articles meant for distribution, unquote, okay, so this is an article. I don't know how to go about telling this, but it seems like there was like a backlash by the government of India regarding freebies. But nevertheless, I think there is an origin in Tamil Nadu, and I don't know, it's kind of a little personal, and I don't want to touch too much on it. But you get the point. The freebie culture during election is rising, and it is giving roots to people in other parts of India, including my state, like I said, in Nagaland, which is a danger to democracy and our lives. Okay, so I think you get the gist of it. I am sort of a pro and against some things that the whole freebie culture has to give. So yes, okay, all right. Okay. So let's talk about power politics in India and Tamil Nadu. Okay. So the DMK. Okay. So this was run by M. Karunanidhi. Okay, he was the founder of DMK. Parent party was the Dravidian Kazhagam, DK. Okay, so before DMK was DK. Okay, which was founded in 1944 by E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. Okay, I think I hope I pronounced that name right. Who was also known as Periyar. Okay, Periyar was his like a nickname, so people used to call him Periyar. So his party ideology focused on eradicating untouchabilities, okay, caste hierarchy, religious superstition, women's rights, and wanted to get away from the imposition of Hindi language upon the non-Hindi speakers. So this happens still today, okay. So in a way, all parties in Tamil Nadu sort of owe their allegiance to the DK, the founding father of politics and the parties in Tamil Nadu. So Ramachandra Guha, in his book India After Gandhi, which was published in 2008, and Makers of Modern India in 2012, gives us an insight by suggesting that C.N. Annadurai, who was Periyar's protege and had softened the virulent politics of Periyar and the DK and successfully brought the DMK to power in 1967. So basically, there was a clash between the DK and the DMK, but obviously the DMK eventually split in the early 1970s, and Mantini idol M.G. Ramachandra, MGR, founded the AIDMK. So these political movements shape the culture, the society, the discourse of the Tamil political, narrative. And I think this is very important for us to understand the background and the foundation of Tamil Nadu and its polity. So let's move on to the governance of India. Okay, so we have a lot to say about the government of India if we speak about any states. As voters, voting based on good governance, philosophical, rational, psychological tendencies, performance of leaders, delivery of schemes in their constituency, law and order, addressing the issues on corruption, okay, public infrastructure developments, healthcare, education, environmental pollution, agricultural issues in the rural areas. I have a question. Do these voters actually have an understanding of all these processes? Okay, this democratic processes. Okay, and the tactical, strategic processes that deliver the needs of their votes. That's a very good question. I think because if you're going to vote in many other countries, per se, in the first world countries, in the Western countries and Far East and all that, they kind of know what they're voting for, and they kind of understand the philosophical, the gains, the rational gains that they will be getting out of who they vote. But here, it seems to be a question for many scholars. I tend to regress if I'm mistaken, but I'm setting the record here, okay? So many scholars and the public have voiced that in today's day and age, governance has been dominated by the decree of charismatic, domineering leaders and ruled by supremos, okay, who does not necessarily go by the due process for the most part of the political process, okay, and the electoral process. The allegations of rampant voter bribery, criminal intimidations, violence, which all leads to the money and muscle power. For example, I'll give you an example of what happened in India in 2012 in December, which was a case of Nirbhaya incident in Delhi. I'm sure if you're an Indian, you might recollect about the lady who was a young woman who was brutally assaulted in a bus. Okay, and this caused a lot of civil activists and the public, crying out for justice. So that being said, okay, right. So, for example, okay, I'm strongly speaking on behalf of many of us, okay, many parts of India who are currently facing the Rubicon of many unforeseen calamities, okay, within the government. For example, okay, we had an anti-emergency movement in 1970s, okay, and India Against Corruption IAC. I don't know if you remember during 2011 and 2012, Anna Hazare, okay, he did this hunger strike regarding the corruption and the infrequencies of the government processes. Okay. Another example is in Tamil Nadu in 2011 assembly elections. Okay, the ruling DMK had lost due to poor governance and cases of scams, leading to a coalition win by AIADMK. Okay, defeated its opponent with a margin of 52%. Okay, and more of the total vote. So it was more than 52% that AIADMK won because of obviously they had a cleaner record. Okay. So these movements in India reminds me of a quote by Abraham Lincoln, which still stands today, which says, "Of the people, by the people, and for the people." For the people is basically how government functions for the people, right? So let's move on to the electoral processes and the political processes, and maybe we'll try to analyze a little bit about that. Okay, so many scholars and op-eds, maybe news reporters, maybe academicians have pointed out, okay, that there is a crucial need to reform the electoral politics in India, which recognize the importance and influence of social, and civil societies, okay, and inform the fundamental constitutional functions of the ECI, okay. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to rectify and inform the public about the importance of knowing, the electoral processes, the fundamental constitutional functions and rights that is given, utmost right to us as citizens, of this country, or maybe for your country too in other parts of the world if you're an international, person or student per se. So yes, within the sphere of public knowledge, so we're talking about we want to educate both the local, and the rural bodies of the electoral bodies, okay, which is very important because India is still a very young country when it comes to the parliamentary system, and I think it is a republic in a way, and so just so that we try to make it a little bit more fair, a little bit more transparent, and maybe there'll be an easy process of people who can participate. Okay, so one such organization that deals with all this activism of educating the masses is the Association of Democratic Reforms, ADR. Okay, I don't know. I'm sure you can look it up on the on the internet. But according to the article, in this article, Padma Bhan, in the same article that have been quoting, he points out that while elections themselves do not define a constitutional democracy entirely, they are clear yardstick of the will of the people, unquote. So this is on page 225 in the article, to take or not to take. Okay, is the freebie culture in Tamil Nadu elections a threat to Indian democracy? Okay. Right, so we kind of covered that, okay, so it's very important for us to actually, not just us, but the civic societies and, non-profit and even, the judicial and the government to actually inform the masses, okay, about the importance of all these kind of things. So, okay, let's move on. For example, okay. The ADR, okay, so I said the Association of Democratic Reforms again, okay, so the ADR conducted a nationwide survey. So, guys, I'm talking about an electoral and political process of India, okay, and how, we need to strengthen it in order for us to, move forward, okay. So the ADR conducted a nationwide survey in 2014, okay, before the Lok Sabha election. For Tamil Nadu, the voter survey was conducted in 2016. So the all of India survey was conducted in 2014. Then in Tamil Nadu was conducted in 2016, right before the assembly elections, where Jayalalitha, led by AIADMK, won. Okay, with a very small margin. I think it was 1.1%. Okay, with a coalition of versus the DMK-led coalition. Okay. So each had their own coalitions, but the difference was merely 1.1%. Okay, so then we have the third one, which is the midterm national survey in 2017 and a pre-poll survey in 2018 December. Okay, so let me just talk to you about the Indian survey, all of India, okay, and Tamil Nadu. Okay, let's get to the nitty-gritty of it. Okay, so in 2014 survey, which was done as a nationwide survey, 250,000 people. So in 525, 250,000. So that's like probably the largest survey in the world. I mean, if you think about the population of India, it's very high, I would say, compared to many other countries. So people, 250,000 people in 525, Lok Sabha constituencies were interviewed, which the reason of the survey was to understand the gap between the perception of voters. Okay, guys, this is very important. Perception of voters on the government. Okay, how it is performing, the priorities, the needs of the people. So the whole survey was based on how people would react and how people would judge the government. Okay. So there were 30 important issues that came up in the survey, and a scale of 10, on a scale of 10, okay, so this is all of India, okay, biggest survey in the world, okay. The people voted 7.51 on important issues that were raised. Obviously, that was important to people, okay, dearly, okay. Now, 5.68% was on government's performance, which was actually quite low, if you think about it. These are all stats and data that I'm actually quoting from, from credible sources and even government sources, by the way. Okay. Now, the second one is in 2016. Okay, 2016, which was Tamil Nadu. Okay, it was a survey involved 16,000 respondents. Okay, from all assembly constituencies, with a kind of a value of good, average, and bad. Okay, so 16,000 was actually quite a lot because each was their respective assembly constituencies. Okay, so it was kind of like broadly spread out. So they had sort of a good measurement per se. So the performance on the incumbent AIADMK government in 2006, okay, before election was rated bad actually. It was 68% bad, okay. So we had bad, average, and good. So, before the 2016 election, it was actually pretty bad, 68. And then 30% was average and 2% was good. So, I mean, we're talking about, 60, 70, 90, 98%, which didn't favor the government's, government's role and how it, performed. This is in ADR, okay, ADR 2006. You can Google it. You can see all the data, Association of Democratic Reforms, and the website, in their website, okay. So the majority comprises of rural voters, okay, within the Tamil Nadu area, forming the majority electorate, showing up. 3 top priorities that people actually voted for. Number 1 was agricultural loan availability. Okay, number 2, better employment opportunities. I think this is this is concerning everybody in the world right now, post-pandemic. And I think you can check it out in my previous podcast. I did speak about that, okay, about the unemployment, the rise of unemployment in the world, especially people, people who are young, okay. And there's the third one is availability of electricity for agriculture in the rural areas. So that was the 3 main points that actually people, cried out for. Okay. Now, for the urban voters in Tamil Nadu, okay, some of the things that they voted for was employment opportunities, traffic congestion, noise pollution, healthcare, infrastructure, water and air pollution, and drinking water, right? So I think these are very essential needs that one has to actually go about and ask the government. See, a lot of Indian people didn't actually have the opportunity, or neither they had the education to ask for all these things for many, many years. So, I'll be honest to you, the government was kind of like going about its own, its own ways per se, and maybe in a very good intent. But, now that, the power of the internet is such, on a massive scale, I think it's very important for us to kind of educate the masses, and especially the electoral and political processes needs to be checked, every now and then. Okay, now the third one was ADR 2007 survey, which was the Midterm National Survey. It points out that the important factors among voters, number 1, okay, so this is all India, okay. Again, number 1 was party leadership, okay, party identification, and the candidates fielded in the constituencies, okay. So in India, if you think about it, so have you noticed, like in in the rural areas in Tamil Nadu or probably in other states as well, they had different needs, okay, and even in the rural areas, they had very different needs. And within the state itself, it was a different kind of important things that they wanted. And I think even in the this survey in 2017, which was the midterm survey done by ADR across India, was a whole different set of things that people wanted. I told you, so party leadership identification and candidate fielded in the constituency. So this is kind of like the general perspective of the Indian political system, right? That they wanted. Okay, so according to scholars, okay, the political system in India is not based on a simple majority or a primary or runoff system. Rather, first past the post, FPTP system, okay, even by one vote. So basically, what does FPTP, first past the post, means? Like, it's a system that could overturn the government even by one vote, okay. And there's this wave election, okay. So these are, terms that a lot of political science students or international students or people who are interested in this kind of narrative will understand what I'm saying here. But hey, it's good for you to know as well. So in India, people vote out the government if they don't like it here, unlike many other countries, which takes a whole rigorous, long process. For example, in 2015, I know if you're, young enough, you might know the Chennai floods, okay? And so in 2016 assembly elections in Tamil Nadu, the ruling AIADMK almost lost with a 2/3 majority of the seats in and around Chennai. So obviously the flood hit in Chennai. So obviously, the party lost most of their, most of their seats. So, yes, it is. India is a wave election system, and also, even by one vote or one seat, you could lose the whole election. Okay, so that's the kind of like a gist of Indian politics. So in conclusion, okay, let me just wrap it up here. If people demand freebies or free money for votes during election, okay, then what is the purpose of democracy? I ask you, my fellow citizens, okay? Or what is the noble practice of politics? I ask you again, okay? It's one thing to ask for free money and free car and freebies and all that stuff, and you are held accountable for, and you tell the public, okay, look, I'm going to buy you this and that, and I'm going to take out this much money from the government and from the public's funds or GST or whatever you call it, and you lay out up front for the public to see. And I don't think that's a wrong thing, okay? So that's not what's happening here. And I'm not saying specifically for Tamil Nadu, but I'm saying in general in India, okay? Where does the people's needs disappear, okay? For example, where does the infrastructure developments take place? Agriculture, roads, industries, electricity, unemployment, education, the arts, and the basic amenities. When would they come to fruition? Okay, that's the question here. I know there's a lot of things that are coming about, but during election, if the public's exchequer is being accounted for as per their short-term or long-term demands legally by consent, I told you it's fine. But and I shall digress from my opinions here and leave that for another debate. Okay, but if it's not given, if the exchequer, if the accountability, if the credibility is not given in public, and if everything goes inside your pocket, I think that's a very big question for us citizens to ponder upon. Okay, and I wish this video can be translated in Hindi as well. But nevertheless, however, if politicians, right, if politicians and parties funnel and move money with the help of the government, corporations and individuals, and create all sorts of problems along the way and win elections, then money and muscle power is unfortunately still on the rise. Okay. Looking at the overall Tamil Nadu case, okay, let's just put it in a nutshell. It's a good thing that we have to sort of learn from other states, and I think I wouldn't say Tamil Nadu is perfect. Neither many of our states, and neither my state is perfect. But in a progressive state like Tamil Nadu, where such things are happening, I don't know if it's the right thing to say for me, but hopefully things will change during this coming MK Stalin's the MK in power, which took place on 6th April of 2021. I hope good things come out. Okay, and while the political processes, and the election processes, and the electoral processes, keeps the momentum rolling, I hope good things come about. Okay, and so that we as a people will be delivered based on what they promised. Okay, I think this is very important, and I think it shouldn't be led astray. Okay, how how our jobs are going out, or how whatever it is. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think muscle power and money power shouldn't be the narrative and the direction that we should move forward. Okay, and like I said, I think this is just another. Here's another reminder again. I've actually, I wanted to just do this podcast on Tamil Nadu and sort of a little bit of electoral processes in India, because I thought it was very interesting, and I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you find it interesting as well after you do some more research. There's a lot of things that we can learn and maybe share, for better government and governance. So anyways, I'll see you guys again in my next podcast. All right, okay, you guys have a wonderful evening, and God bless you all. All right.